Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you're having a great time in the area, vicinity, city, country, wherever you are. It's really warm here in Southern California. It's triple digits for the past day or so. So it's been really interesting. But it didn't stop me from trying to enjoy, take care of clients, and do all kind of cool things. What is that electric thing behind me as S4? It's pretty cool. You see it's plugging in, right? The cool thing about plugging in is if you have a petrol station in your house or your work, you would never go to a gas station again in your life. You just have no need to. So this right behind me is a 2019, beautiful by the way, it's a gorgeous red, a beautiful 2019 Jaguar I Pace. So it has a nice designation on the back showing something very clever like an EV400, which is a little inkling of what lurks underneath this beautiful skin. It's like a 395 horsepower setup, 519 pound-foot of torque, amazing torque, all-wheel drive, and I'm not saying this, I'm really not patronizing these guys, but it is like the perfect luxury SUV, which is almost an SUV, but almost like a saloon, but almost like a station wagon because it doesn't have the big proportions of an SUV. There's no audio? Oh no, you guys can't hear me? Oh, okay, there's audio, okay. Onio, you mess with me. Good. Hello, Mazi. Mazi, good seeing you. Wow, Super Panda's been a fan since Pomona. That was '06, my first facility, which is pretty cool. So, back to the I-Pace. Now, Jaguar, as you know, they've been known for racing, very strong racing heritage in Britain or in the UK or England. Above and beyond that, they have done amazing things with their cars in terms of handling, so on and so forth, which is great. And this is their first foray into the EV world, similar to what I did with the K3, which is right here next to me. Those of you on YouTube can see that, but those on Instagram can't. But they did a great job. You know, there is a market leader right now in the EV world, and they do a fantastic job with, you know, putting out some great awareness for the EV and how amazing it is and so on and so forth. And they have their own SUV, but one thing that was a qualm for that brand for me was that the fit and finish wasn't ideal. I mean, you get inside, the car almost looks like a prototype. You can tell that the company is not very apt in building their cars, but Jaguar has been building cars for centuries, a little close to a century now, and above and beyond that, the fit and finish inside this thing is amazing. It has that attention to detail that you can expect from luxury brands from the UK. It's very nice, and despite being 4,700 pounds, the handling is amazing. It's really, really cool. I'm really impressed with this car. So impressed that I may have to get rid of my hybrid and get one of these. That's how impressed I am. It's very comfortable, has an eco mode if you want to be miserly. It gets north of 200 miles per full charge. The kilowatt of the battery setup is like 90 kilowatt hours, which is pretty cool. So on level 2, how you see me charging now, can take up to, if it's completely depleted, can take up to like 9-10 hours. But it has the ability for direct DC-DC. Cobalt, you're here, you know that DC-DC, which is pretty cool, right? You want to see the Porsche says shutter? Okay, I'm going to show you around right here. There it is right there. That's the Porsche right there, my EV Porsche, my first EV. Forgive me for those of you on YouTube. Okay, so it takes about 9-10 hours to fully charge if completely depleted, but on a direct DC-DC fast charger, you can get a full charge in 40 minutes, which is pretty cool. The interior is so nice. It's very clever what they did, and it's kind of, you know, thank you so much, the EV Marketplace. We like how EV gives manufacturers the opportunity to be different and daring with things like styling. Yes, it does. That's the great thing. I feel like because of the nature of electric motors nowadays, it's a renaissance for vehicle designers. You no longer are limited to the height of a petrol engine or limited to cooling of a petrol engine like you would with this. I'm even wearing my air-cooled or water-cooled shirt because it's very near and dear to my heart, especially with not only what we do with petrol engines, but with EVs, because the charger's air-cooled, with some slight water cooling on the batteries as well. And this thing gets up. I mean, the 0-60 is about a little bit north of 4 seconds, which is not crazy, but for an SUV, it's pretty respectable. But above and beyond that, it's so comfortable, so luxurious. And I'm saying a lot of good things, but there are some things that I would say I wasn't very happy with this. Above and beyond the technology and the coefficient of drag was like 0.29. to really help with some range. I really wasn't very happy with my connectivity with my Apple CarPlay. It was very laggy to some aspect, which is kind of weird. I heard a noise that was slightly, dare I say, artificial when I gave it full throttle. It's like a, almost like a petrol-based noise, and I kind of like the mechanical noises of the electric motors, so I prefer that. But take away those two things away, this is, I'm ashamed to say, the perfect SUV. The perfect SUV because it has the styling, which is very attractive. The interior is absolutely fantastic. The sound system is to die for. It really has this beautiful pickup with a single speed setup. It's all-wheel drive, so there's safety, especially when we go up the mountains in the winter time here in California. And that's the great thing about California here. We have the capability. I am an hour away from the beach. I'm an hour away from the desert. I'm an hour away from the snow when it's closer to the end of the year. It's really cool, and this stability and then the handling. Jaguar, if you guys are listening, how did you get something so heavy to handle so well? I know what I had to go through to lighten my car and get to handle well this Porsche, but you did it with a car that's almost the weight of my minivan. And it has that Jaguar handling of a sports car. It's really crazy, you know? Josh Wonderford is asking, have I ever considered solar panels? Yes, I have. The challenge with solar panels is that the density. So I know a company, I think there's a company out there known as, I think it's Scion, and they are creating a whole vehicle that can allow you to have solar panels to try and power it. But I'm a performance EV guy, not just a mobility guy, so I think the technology is not there to allow us to completely power a 4, 6, 800 volt system with solar panels alone. It can help with the 12 volt system. It can help give you a little bit more range, but it cannot fully charge for any period of time. It's just not possible, I see Fabian is kind of creep underneath the door here. He just hit his bottom on the door. Just think how lucky you are to have all those spots in LA just an hour away. I am fortunate, and that's the reason why I feel that in California, SoCal, real estate is so expensive because it's so convenient and so comfortable, So my next EV project, I do plan on incorporating some type of solar technology. And as time progresses, because the next car I'm building will have a lot of, how should I say, physical real estate. It's going to be a pretty large vehicle, and I can try and take advantage of that by doing that, but I don't think I have access, as we said today, to the cell density that can allow me to fully charge a 32, 65, 80, 90, 100 kilowatt hour battery pack properly in any given time with just the real estate on top of a vehicle. It's just not possible, Oluwai is saying, I sent you a DM, don't know if you saw it. So Oluwai, forgive me, please. I get hundreds of DMs, hundreds a day. So I try and get through them early mornings and the evenings when I'm too slammed. When I'm here in the office, this is like my vacation, spending time with you guys, which is great. Hello, LA Dismantler, good seeing you. New shirt update, air-cooled, water-cooled, and electrified. Ooh, I like how you think, Paul. Paul, you're really creative. And for those of you who don't know Paul, he's from Fox Designs. As you can see, he's right in there. The wagon back there, he helped me with that, with some great designs with that. Even the Hot Wheels Porsche, which is in the showroom right now, he did a shift. The guy is like immensely talented, which is great. Hello, Totuline, good seeing you. I'm so popular, thank you so much, and so are you. Thank you so much, LA Dismantler. For those of you who know LA Dismantler, the LA Dismantler is a facility in the, I would say, Sun Valley area, and I buy a lot of my parts from them, a lot of no longer available parts. If I have a vehicle that I need to put together, for example, the K3V, they supplied the entire dash assembly, my stock assembly, because the car was devoid of it when I picked it up. And Sarah and her team are amazing. If you need anything Porsche, they are the one to have it, Favorite EV I have driven and why? So I have to divide that into 3 parts, okay? In terms of day-to-day mobility and fun, this thing. The AC, the vented seats, the feel of the steering wheel. I mean, okay, you may say, what do you mean by feel of steering wheel? Look at the class leader in EV cars right now, and look at that steering wheel. That thing is so ugly, right? This thing, it's leather, it's Jaguar, it's elegant. I appreciate those fine touches, that attention to detail, those details, I appreciate that. This has that. So as a daily commuter, this, as far as I'm concerned, is my favorite commuter EV car. I mean it, guys. Don't be surprised if I end up getting one of these. Okay. In terms of just absolute fun, EV-wise, the K3V is bananas. This thing is scary. I destroy drivetrain parts, which is great, but you know, my guys from driver shop are helping me fix that. And it's spoiling me completely. It's completely turned me off to the feeling of petrol cars, unfortunately, which is great. So I really like that. And last but not least, in terms of a manufacturer stepping to the plate and making something happen, just thinking out of the box and going far forward, it's kind of a tie between what our friends from Rimac are doing and also what Porsche did with the Taycan Turbo S. So, but in terms of cars that I've driven myself firsthand, I would say the Bisimoto K3V and this Jaguar I Pace. Any further updates on the Jay Leno possibly driving the K3V? No updates yet. You know, so Koval just shared something that was really interesting. I kind of got a same message or inquiry from my friends across the pond at Quake this morning. The Monday where everything was shut down here in California, where governor shut everything down, that Thursday is when we're supposed to shoot Jay Leno and the K3V. So he's being safe, older gentleman with COVID. So as soon as things die down and we're okay to do it, he'll be first in line to have to drive this, you know, which is great, you know? Velocity N, I can't wait for tomorrow. I imagine to my Velocity N. Yes, I'll be more than happy to. And what I'm going to do to Velocity N Racing Red is I'm going to put his car on the dynos, get a baseline. Then I'm going to grab his ECU, flash it accordingly. I'm going to grab actually the files out of the ECU, and then I need to take some time based upon what I see with the baseline. And it'll take me, you know, a few hours to be able to do that, and I'll modify his maps using WinOLS. And I'll put it back into his ECU, and he'll have a jolly old time, which is great. So I'm pretty amazing, you know? JDM at HWD saying, when you say the K3V turns you off to internal combustion powertrains, can you explain so? I will be more than happy to. So, I'll give you a little bit of background at DJM. I was anti-EV. This Jaguar, this K3, I was against them, okay? Why? Not because I experienced it. I thought that EV cars, even as a scientist, even as an engineer, EV cars are kind of for tree huggers, for people who want to save the environment. It was far from sexy. I didn't like it at all. Then I heard from my peers in the automotive community how it has no soul and it's rubbish and it's just destroying the future and no fun, quiet, rubbish. I heard all these things, so I was really against it based upon not only what my mindset was, but also my peer influence. So guess what? I noticed that a lot of my OEM partners, you know, from Hyundai and Honda, and I knew that Jaguar was trying to get into this, were really putting more resources into the EV world. So I said, okay, as a builder and a tuner, despite my biases, I need to do the right thing and explore this market. So I went to CES, saw what they were doing, decided to build my own, and with some influence with some people in the industry, everyone from my guys from AEM to Ian Scott to Michael Bream, I was able to say, you know what? Let me build my first one. And with some support from them and Mitch Peterson, I finally put this together. And the first time I drove this, I was blown away. It's just that, and at the same time as I was building this, Acura was sending us a bunch of NSXs, and I was able to track those and see the benefits of electric motor combined with petrol engines, but never really a pure EV. So guess what? I had the opportunity to build this, and I drove it, and so let me give you another backgrounder. I'm an enthusiast first. So I love speed, and I also love to go fast without the guilt. So a majority of my cars are petrol-based. I hated the smell. I hated using tetraethyl lead as a way to have anti-knock properties. I hated toluene. I hated benzene, all these carcinogens in gasoline to allow you to be able to crank up the boost. So I started getting into flex fuels with the minivan and all this other stuff so I can have ethanol as a way to get cleaner performance. Then I fast forward to this EV. It no emissions whatsoever. The torque is like that. I'm telling you guys, you drive this, it is amazing. I've never, so I drive my K3V. It's this amazing Porsche 935. I jump into the blue IROC Porsche, and I don't have that torque off the line. It's like kind of anemic now feeling to me. What I thought was amazing is now anemic, and then I drive off, and then it goes to the peak torque, then I shift, and then it starts off again with low efficiency, goes to peak torque, nice, then I shift again, it falls. So I'm like, this is not fun, and I have the noise, and here's something crazy. I've talked about this a lot, guys, right? Connection with the road. Very important. You guys may not believe this, but can you believe that I feel more connected with a K3 with electric car than I do a petrol engine? Almost like the petrol engine, the sound of the petrol engine dampens my connection to the road. With the EV, I feel the road, I hear the tires, I feel the pebbles going up in the wheel well. I feel more connected to the tarmac. It's really weird, guys. It's so weird. And I do that without the guilt, you know, which is amazing. How does a pure EV compare to a performance hybrid? Well, let's say this. Comparing the K3V to, I have a client's NSX here. I would say for those who want to feel the vibrations of a petrol engine, a performance hybrid allows you to do that. But still you have emissions and still you have hydrocarbons coming out of tailpipe. But it gives you that combination of the immediate torque off the line and then the combination of the sound and feeling of a petrol engine. But a performance EV, it's really interesting. In my K3V, I have the engine noise pumping into the cabin. So I don't have any partitions between the engine compartment where the motor sits and also my compartment. So you hear that mechanical noise and it's quite intoxicating. You look down like, oh my God, I'm doing 100. You have to be very careful. It's really interesting. But for the pure experience, I'm telling you guys, I used to be the same way. I was totally against it. Performance EVs, they're here to stay and they're actually quite magnificent. And then to take that now into the luxury market where I can now have a guilt-free experience in an EV that I can just plug in at home. You know, with COVID, I am terrified of touching pumps. I really am. I'm absolutely terrified of going to a gas pump and grabbing that pump and squeeze. So I had this crazy ritual on spraying things down and wiping things down. But now here, I plug in at work, I plug in at home. The cost per miles is so much lower. And I was really afraid, you know, Tessamino's here, you know, being able to hear that for the first, absolutely. Tessamino, he knows what I'm talking about. It's crazy. And Santa Michael, I just mentioned him a moment ago, being a big influence on me. It's amazing how I can now feel comfortable with a petrol station in my house and a petrol station in the office. And it's really great. Chineme GT3 came in a little bit late. He's asking, what is that behind me? This is a 2019 Jaguar, or Jaguar as we say back home, I Pace. So it's the EV400, has about 400 horsepower, 395 to be exact, and 519 pound-foot of torque with a coefficient drag of 0.29. It has all these cool vents that allow air to actually pass through the car and make it more efficient. It has this very strange back, which is very nice and low, so it's not quite like a full SUV, but also not a station wagon, almost like a semi-hatch. A lot of creature comforts, which is very nice. Some nice 20-inch wheels with some Goodyear tires around it, all-wheel drive. Gets a little bit north of 200 miles full range at a 90 kilowatt-hour pack. Very luxurious, very well put together. The interior appointments are absolutely beautiful. And I was mentioning earlier on, there's another manufacturer out there that's very popular, that has the market in a stranglehold in terms of volume sales. But you look at the fit and finish in those cars, it pales in comparison to what Jaguar has done. And all of this, you get all of that with a sound system, AC, airlift suspension, all this crazy, amazing stuff. Like this one fully loaded is $88,000. $88,000, which is great, you know. Shutter Smart says, tell us about the twin turbo 930 Porsche. Okay, I can. It's a 1975 Porsche. We just did something recent with Jay Leno, so you can see a really in-depth driving experience with that with Jay, and he loved it. It is the first car that I had ever built that was a Porsche petrol engine. It's the first engine I built as far back as 2007. It's the same engine is still in it. I think the guys from DDE had some fun with it here in the complex. It has twin 57mm turbos, air-to-air intercooler, runs on an AEM Series 2, which is soon be upgraded. It is absolutely a blast to drive. 850 horsepower, weighs 2,400 pounds, so it's very lightweight. And really was the most terrifying thing I'd ever driven. Almost killed me on the side of the street until I built an electric car here, which is very interesting, you know? If anything, you're worried about tire quality and life, take a break, charge it up, and keep the fun going. Amen, Warden Daily. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, little Turk. Why did I use a 964? I didn't have access to one. So here's one thing that I do. I have this really strange mindset. You guys may think I'm pretty bananas, right? I am big at upcycling. And what does that mean? I feel that it's more detrimental to our planet to build a car from scratch than repurpose one that already has been built. So what does that mean? Well, I tend to find rolling shells quite a bit, and I tend to build those up. So the K3V was a rolling shell that I found in the desert area, close to the Palm Desert, owned by Ron Palmer. He was gonna have his girlfriend raise it, but she wanted something newer, so I ended up picking that up. The blue Porsche was one I found in San Diego, a rolling shell as well. I don't tend to find a lot of 964 rollers, and I look for them. I'm looking for a 964 C4 roller right now. They're not very common, and if I did, I would do that. For me to take a proper running 964 and take it apart, I'd rather put another Porsche on the road that's destined to a life of never being driven or tracked ever, you know? That's good, unfortunately, you know? Spencer Media says, hello, I've graduated high school and I'm stuck between jumping out and learning how to tune or going to school for mechanical engineering. What would be your advice on what to do? And I'll give you the same advice I gave myself. Both. You don't have to choose one or the other. I, as an engineering student, raced, tuned, experimented, designed on the side as a student as I went to school. And it did two things. It made me a better student because the concepts I learned in school now made more sense. I really mean that, guys. When you're in engineering school, if you don't have a practical application of what you're learning, it tends to be just something you ingest and regurgitate. You don't quite understand it well. But if you're taking fluid dynamics and you understand, oh my God, atomization of fluids is what I'm using for my injectors. That's why spray pattern with the RDX injectors gives me more power. Oh my goodness. Or you talk about heat and mass transfer, and you think about conservation of energy by using coatings to keep heat in combustion chamber and do more work on the pistons and create more power. All those things tend to make sense now, right? So, to be the best engineering student and the best tuner, combine the two. Go to school. I don't care if you have to volunteer in a shop that you're interested in. I don't care if you intern or you get paid part-time. Work in a shop, get your feet wet, get a project car, play with it, be the best engineering student you can. Ask questions, think out of the box. It does wonders. And I'll tell you one thing, as I interact with companies like Hyundai and General Atomics and Northrop, these companies, when they get to choose people to join their teams, they rather choose engineers that have practical experience, particularly in racing or fabrication. So, that being said, that's my advice to you, and we can make things happen. No cap badges as KBA intern? Yes, you can, but you have to send in a resume to see if you have the qualities that we're looking for here at Bisimoto. So if you send a resume to lab@bisimoto.com, if you have what it takes, we'll bring you in, do a few interviews, and you can join our team and have some fun. And we love you, we absorb you. How cool is that, you know? How do you feel about electric pumps for daily use? Are they 100K reliable? So it depends on the brands. Not all brands are created equally. So I've seen a lot of electric water pumps from Bosch. I assume that's what you mean. I've seen from Mazda, and I've run both with cars without failure. I can only speak for those two. Bosch factory, like original factory Bosch one units. Mercedes-Benz uses it. I think, I'm trying to remember, I think Ford uses it on some liquid to air intercoolers as well. The Mazda, their company out in Southern California here, I've used their pump with great things, you know. So it's pretty nice, you know. Site Carson is saying, which notable facility one? The one in South Bay, Carson. I would say more closer to El Segundo. And we have a few engineers that we interact with there. And they tend to hire some interns that come through here. And they tell us what they look for, which is pretty good, you know. What is the minimum age and qualifications to internship with you? I'll be giving too much away, right? But I can tell you age-wise, we've had interns as young as 16 years old here, which is not a problem, you know. Are oil coolers worth it? Yes, especially if you have an engine that tends to have very high oil temps, or an engine that doesn't have great cooling, or better yet, an inefficient oil. So what I mean by that, some oils have better thermal stability than others and have the ability to wick heat away and disperse of them. My friends from Purol, they are an aerospace company and they have vast experience with high temperatures and high friction and even, dare I say, high chemical resilience applications. So their oils, they tend to know what to do with the additive package to be able to put those challenges at bay, you know? Big Head Z-Zine says, how did you get into Porsche, BC? I need your post chamber for 911 SC. Love your work ethic and attitude. No negativity in our car community. Amen, Big Head. So, I'll make it quick, because our time is getting kind of crazy, but here's what happened. When I came to the United States, my first vehicle was a Nissan. I was a student. That one got crashed, so I got a CRX. That CRX was what put me through school. It was my experimentation car, so I really primarily dealt with sport compact. As I graduated from school, got into pharmaceutical research, I started doing very well. OEMs started taking notice, and I started racing for OEMs as a semi-pro. Did that quite a bit, especially with American Honda, and ended up upgrading from my CRX to a Honda Insight and doing well with that. Now, because of my success on and off the track, I had the opportunity to attract a lot of teams who wanted me to tune their cars, because not only did I do a lot of development here, I also had the opportunity to do my own tuning with my own Dynapack dynamometer. Amongst those individuals were people from a Honda Challenge, a very, very competitive series. There's H1, H2, H3, H4. And these guys, every horsepower counts. One gentleman in particular, his name is Benoit Pecois, or Benny Pecois. Benny came from France, just like myself, was a student, made his money in the dot-com boom, sold his company, I believe, to an Indian organization, and retired very young. But his car, when he came to the United States, just like myself, was a Honda. I think it was CRX to be exact. He also raced Honda Challenge. Even though he was very wealthy and very comfortable and retired, he still raced Honda Challenge and did very well doing it. Very good driver indeed. And he brought his car here for us to tune. And he saw how my tuning style was, what I did in terms of creativity. I talked to him about a lot of my experiments and so on and so forth. And Benny would drive Porsches daily. I said, BC, you know what? You should get into the Porsche market. These guys, the market consists of a lot of older tuners who are very strict, very rigid. They don't think out of the box. They don't have their creativity. We need younger tuners like yourself to get into this market. And I took his advice and said, you know, Benny, I would do that. So instead of experimenting on a customer's car, which a lot of shops do, very bad idea, I went and bought that roller shell from San Diego, thought about an engine that people hated, which was the M96 engine, the Porsche community, applied my Honda ingenuity to that, meaning I addressed all the shortcomings of the engine. I was able to make 1,000 horsepower with that engine without qualm, and it almost killed me, so I turned it down to 700, and then bumped it back up to 850 when I was a little bit more comfortable. So it's pretty good, you know? So that being said, that's how I got into the Porsche world. It was through one of my Honda customers, believe it or not. It's nice, you know? I'm 14, says Jin. What do you think of a Mazda RX-8 for a first car? That's not bad. That's actually pretty cool. And you know what? I think that has a Renesas engine, doesn't it? The Renesas engine is a newer generation Wankel or rotary engine. And I think that can teach you a lot of discipline. Those cars have had a bit of a bad rap in terms of emissions, sound, and to some extent reliability. So I think that'd be a good car as a first car for you to appreciate. Don't LS swap it. Learn the intricate details and simplicity of the Wankel engine, and maybe you can be a better BC for that scene, which they need, you know? Grindhouse Coupe, or Grindhouse PE says, hope you're doing well, BC. What keeps you motivated when you're working alone in the shop? All this social distancing has been getting to me lately, and I feel you, brother. I'm really weird. I enjoy solitude. Well, creative solitude. One of the worst things that can happen to me is me just sitting in a jail cell. That'll suck. Or in a room where I can't do anything, right? But if I can have the ability to create, that is like, creation is something that is very near and dear to me. It feels like gardening, or some people knit. But when I'm creative, I'm in a different zone. And believe it or not, I created more products during the first few weeks of COVID social distancing than I did in the past probably year and a half. And it was great. So that being said, I tend to focus on the end product. And that is on everything. You know how many of you go to SEMA and do cool things for SEMA projects and so on and so forth, and it's just so labor intensive and horrible, and no matter how you plan, it's still last minute. In my case, I get a lot of delays from external things that happen, and then finally when it's time for me to get the car together, I have very little time. When I focus on what I'm doing right there and then, it's very difficult, it hurts. I can get easily discouraged. But when I focus on the end product, when I focus on what my goal is, on what it will look like when it's done, that is very motivating. It gives me a lot of energy to keep going. So during COVID, when sitting here, I think about the end product, and that keeps me focused and keeps me chipping away to get to my goal. And once I get to the goal, I achieved it, I go to the next goal, which is pretty good. I wired up this entire EV, this K3V, all 32 kilowatt hours. I have 96 cells in the rear, 96 cells in the front, with each of the 6 battery packs in the front and rear having 2 thermistors. I've never done wiring. I really never had to. I crimped all of those wires to both BMSs and installed it myself. And it was actually quite good, you know? JDM says too many questions. I'm used to it. I get that a lot. And I try and answer them as much as I can. And that's why it's good that we do this every week, because I can have the opportunity to be able to do, you know, great things, you know? So with that wonderful question, guys, I'm gonna head out. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me on this Tech Tuesday. Thank you, Rusnak, for being a bad influence on me with this EV400 I Pace. I'm gonna do a review, put that up on my YouTube feed. So if you are not part of my YouTube channel, please go on YouTube, type in Bisimoto, subscribe, hit that notification bell, so every time I put a video up, crazy, you can definitely do that. But I really appreciate all you guys. Stay safe, see you soon, and thanks for being amazing. Cheers, everyone.